You know, in the final years of a fading empire, the most important stories don't always start with a revolution or a grand declaration. Sometimes they begin quietly, with an act of simple, youthful determination. This is one of those stories.
So picture this. The year is 1903. You're in Istanbul. On the Bosphorus, modern steamships glide across the water, symbols of a world that's rushing into the future. But down in the streets, the feeling is different. The air is thick with caution, with suspicion. This is the city of Sultan Abdulhamid II, a place of incredible beauty and of absolute control.
This period was known as the Istibdat, which basically means despotism. The Sultan had a massive network of spies, and they were everywhere. Just 3 or 4 young men gathering together on a street corner, that was enough to be seen as a potential plot. In this kind of atmosphere, this climate of fear, even something as simple as playing a game became a political statement.
And you can really see this in how the authorities looked at sports. On the one hand, you had the traditional ancestral sports, things like wrestling, archery, riding. These were encouraged. The palace saw them as part of military tradition. But then there was this new game, football, brought over by the British. They called it the infidels game. It was organized, it was a team effort, and it was unsupervised, which made it dangerous in their eyes.
So, what do? How do you practice a sport in a city that's afraid of them? Well, you go behind closed doors. Or, in this case, you go behind the high walls of a mansion's garden. And that takes our story to the Sarensbay neighborhood of Beşiktaş, to the home of a very high-ranking official named Osman Ferhat Pasha.
It was here, in the autumn of 1902, that about 22 young men started gathering in secret. But here's the clever part. They weren't out there kicking a football around. No, they focused on gymnastics, wrestling, weightlifting, things that were seen as more educational, more military. It was a really smart choice, a way for them to pursue this physical discipline they craved, but under the cover of something respectable and traditional.
And you have to understand, these weren't just some random guys. The founders were the sons of the Ottoman elite. Many, like their first president, Mehmet Shamil, were from noble families from the Caucasus. Some, like a boxer named Kenan Bey, were even members of the Sultan's personal guard. Their high social standing, their connections, well, that would turn out to be the most important asset they had.
But, of course, even with all their caution, you can't keep a secret like that forever. Not in a city of spies. It was really only a matter of time before someone reported their little gatherings. And then, one day, it happened. The Sultan's police raided the garden.
But this moment of crisis actually became their big break. These secret meetings that started in 2002 got a formal name in March of 1903, the Beşiktaş Sporeket Gymnastics Club. But it was that police raid that really forced the issue and set them on a completely unexpected path toward official recognition.
I mean, just imagine the scene for a minute. 22 young men arrested, not for plotting a coup, but for doing push-ups and lifting weights. Their private hobby had just become a very public and very political problem. Honestly, this could have been the end of their story right then and there. But it wasn't.
Because here's the twist. When the whole affair reached Sultan Abdulhamid II, he wasn't angry. He was impressed. Think about it. These were the sons of well-connected families, and they were practicing manly, character-building sports, not that suspicious football game. So he gave them his personal blessing. He issued a royal decree, a firman, that actually gave them permission to continue.
And these guys were smart. They seized the opportunity and cleverly rebranded themselves. They weren't just a club anymore. Oh no, they were now a school of physical education. That name change was brilliant. It gave them official legitimacy, a kind of shield that let them operate and even grow right under the nose of the Sultan's regime.
Then, in 1908, the ground shifted beneath everyone's feet. The Young Turk Revolution brought in a new era of freedom, and it swept across the entire empire. For this small gymnastics club that was born in a garden, this was the moment they could finally step out of the shadows and become a real institution.
And a huge figure in that transformation was a man named Fuat Balkan. He was a disciplined military officer, a fencer, and he came to Istanbul with the Revolutionary Army. He saw this passionate group and gave them structure. He turned the ground floor of his own house into their first headquarters, and in 1910, he guided them through the process of becoming the very first officially registered Turkish sports club.
And as the club grew, so did its mythology. You know, their famous nickname, Kara Kartallar, the Black Eagles, That wasn't dreamed up in some marketing meeting. It came right from the stands. The story goes that during a match in 1941, a lone fisherman named Mahmed Galin just started shouting it over and over as the team dominated. The name stuck. It was just perfect.
But this is where the story gets bigger, because the story of Besiktas is about so much more than sports. It's deeply woven into the story of a nation being born from the ashes of a dying empire.
That discipline they practiced in the garden, it wasn't just for show. When the wars came, First World War I, and then the Turkish War of Independence, the club's members answered the call. Many of them fought and died on the front lines. Fuat Balkan himself led militia forces. Other members used their networks to secretly smuggle weapons from occupied Istanbul to the resistance. They lived the very discipline they preached.
And this ethos, this combination of physical discipline, strength, and national duty, it resonated perfectly with the founder of the new Turkish Republic, Mustafa Kemal Atatürk. For him, sport wasn't just a hobby, it was essential. It was the foundation for building the character of a new generation of citizens. The very principles Besiktas was founded on were the principles he saw for the future of the entire nation.
So it makes you wonder, how does a sports club, started in secret, become a national symbol? Well, maybe it's because its story is a mirror of the nation's own journey, from the controlled silence of an old empire to the determined fight for a new republic. Besiktas became a living bridge between those two worlds, its roots forever in that simple garden. A powerful reminder that sometimes the biggest changes don't start with a roar, but with a quiet, unbreakable will.